Just so everybody's aware, we're going to record Bryon speaking. And so if for any reason you don't feel comfortable having your video camera recorded, you can just turn off your video camera. It's personal preference. We just want to post on the internet for anybody that misses the conference today so that they can have access to the information as well. And if you would like to have access to the recording, I believe it will be posted on oncourt.ca.
Whenever you think we're ready, Mike, just let me know.
Yeah, why don't we turn it over to you and why don't we get started? I think we've given everybody enough time. There might be some late people, but it's okay.
That's all right. Perfect. Anyways, just want to thank Mike for helping set this up a little bit with the Zoom and getting this many people through his access. It's great, and hopefully we can do a decent job today with the video. This is my first time using Zoom, so I'm going to do my best to try to keep the camera on me and give you guys different views of some of the exercises that we're going to go through. So the intent of this workshop, or kind of when I proposed this, was just a way for me to give back to the tennis community. Bit of my background, I am a chiropractor. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm the team chiropractor for the Toronto Argonauts. I work with a lot of tennis players. I played Division I tennis in the US, and as well as I was a hitting partner for about 6 years with some professional players, Roger Federer, Venus Williams, to name a few. So I have that background as well. I've had injuries just like probably every single tennis player who ever plays tennis. And so the intent of this is to go through some novel movements, some new stuff for some people, maybe some things that everybody's already doing. And, some movements that I typically see that are neglected from certain warm-ups, or at least what I've seen, especially at the Rogers Cup with certain players. So today's session, 1 hour session, give or take, we're going to go through some movements, and you can apply it to your warm-up if you'd like. So you're already pre-existing warm-up, or you can add it into your off-court training. So there's different ways to implement this. When I typically prescribe exercises for people, I individualize it. Because we're in such a big group right now, I can't individualize it. So I've taken some movements that that I find are relevant to tennis players based off of the mechanics of different tennis strokes, and as well as some of the research that I've seen with certain predispositions for certain. So this isn't an injury prevention thing. We can't really prevent injuries. We're not great at that. We can reduce risk as best we can. But again, the intent from today is this is basically an exercise class. So hopefully everybody's ready to get moving a little bit. And again, if there is any pain for anybody with any of these exercises, please stop doing it, okay? There shouldn't be any pain with it. So if there is, stop. I don't want Mike to get sued or anything like that. Right, Mike? Or Ace. Perfect. The big thing with this is, like I said, I can't individualize it. The assessment dictates. So myself and another chiro, we run a movement assessment course called Athletic and Movement Assessment, where we assess our athletes or tennis players, you know, and the football players that we work with in order to provide an individualized warm-up. Again, pick and choose what you guys like from these warm-ups as much as you want, and you can add it in. If you have any questions at the end, like Mike said, we'll try to answer some questions as well. So we're gonna get going here. The big thing with the warm-up is hopefully a lot of the players know. So I know there's coaches and young players here, so I'm gonna try to talk to different levels here as best I can. But the big thing with the warm-up is to get the heart rate up, to get the blood circulating, and to just prepare the athlete mentally and physically to start moving and start going through some ballistic and eccentric components of movement, which is what tennis essentially is. The big thing with a warm-up is we want what they call a minimum effective dose. That means as few exercises as you can, but as many as you must, okay? You don't want to fatigue your athlete, especially neurologically, especially here. And in the nervous system, to play, they're fresh. You don't want them completely fried. So again, as few as you can and as many as you must with regards to warm-up, and everybody's different. So these exercises, there's really no right and wrong way to do these exercises, but we're gonna put some constraints on them to see if the athletes and you guys today can actually adapt to some of the instructions that we're giving through these exercises, all right? So, like I said, I'm gonna try to best to situate myself so everybody can see me. If you can't see me, or Mike, if you see that I'm kind of out of screen, give me a couple seconds to place myself because I'm kind of looking at it as well to see if you guys can, and we'll go from there. So the first couple little exercises or warm-up drills that I like to do with my athletes, so you guys can all stand up and hopefully you can see me somewhat well, is for the shoulder. So we're gonna go over about 2 to 3 different movements that we can use for the shoulder to hopefully build up some resiliency in the tissue. Not only warm up, but also you can create some adaptation in order to build some strength as well. The one concept before we start that I want you guys to understand is creating what we call internal tension. So what that means is if I move my hand, so if I do a bicep curl in the air, there's zero resistance. It's just air, I'm moving my arm. If I wanna add a little bit of resistance, that way my body can adapt a little bit more, we can create hopefully some tissue adaptation, is I add internal resistance. So I add an internal contraction. So if I do this, I almost pretend like I'm moving my arm through thick sludge or through mud. So I could contract a little bit and add in that resistance on my way down. So it's almost like somebody's pushing against me here and here. So you can have 0%, you can have 50% where it's a little bit thicker, or 100% would be an isometric contraction, meaning I actually just completely contract my arm. And yes, I have been doing bicep curls before this just to impress everybody here. So, okay, so that's what we have to understand. With the warm-up, I always like a little bit of resistance. So 30 to 40% of your maximum contraction, okay? Does everybody understand that? So I'm adding a little bit of resistance as I go through this. So like I said, we're going to start with the shoulder. What we typically see on the court when somebody's warming up is they'll do arm circles like this. They'll do big ones, they'll do some small ones. There's nothing wrong with that. What I want to add to this, creating, like I said, a little bit of resistance, which will help warm the body up a little bit more and create some adaptation into the tissue itself. But in addition to that, what I want from the athletes, especially the younger athletes, is they have to learn how to control their body parts. And we see it a lot with younger athletes when they're playing tennis. Their arms are going one way, the head's going the other way, and they're lacking a little bit of coordination. And it's a normal thing, especially when kids go through growth spurts, for that to occur, but we still want to try as best we can to teach them how to control and coordinate their body parts. So that's very important. So that being said, the first drill, I'm going to try to block this light out with my head, and I apologize, I haven't had a haircut for a while because, you know, obviously, we know why. I'm going to try to cut it later today. So first drill here is everybody's going to be standing up. Their thumb's going to be facing forward, okay? From this position here, what I want you guys to do is add in a 30% resistance when we move through it. So you're going to move your arm, and I'm going to demonstrate first a little bit faster. You're going to move it forward. You're going to hit your barrier, so you're not going to be able to go further. Then you're going to pronate. So you're going to rotate, and then you're going to come all the way back down so that your pinky is now facing forward. As everybody can see my pinky here. And then we're going to reverse it. Thumb backwards and coming all the way back around. Now, like I said, add in the resistance, but the important thing here for everybody is I only want the shoulder to move, the ball and socket joint. So when I go through this motion, I don't want the back moving. When I come back, I don't want the trunk rotating, and I don't want the head and neck moving. We're learning how to create control through that shoulder complex, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna all do it together, and I'm gonna give you different views for myself, and we're gonna do 3 repetitions per side, and just make a mental note how your shoulder feels following it. Does it feel a little bit more warmed up than just letting the momentum go, okay? So we're all gonna start together. We're gonna start on the right side, thumb facing forward. You're gonna add in an internal contraction of 30%. So you're gonna contract your forearm, you're gonna make a fist, contract your elbow so it's straight. And we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly raise the arm forward. So add in resistance, so it should be slow. You can do it and pay attention to what you're doing. So slowly raise up, head staying still, keep your ribs down. You're gonna go back as far as you can go. Once you hit that roadblock and you can't go further without compensating side to side, what I want you to do is then try to go even a little bit more. See if you can get another couple degrees out of that without compensating through the head or trunk. Once you hit that position, what I want you to do is pronate. So you're gonna turn your palm facing outwards. I'm gonna come down. Without rotating your body and moving your head, you're gonna slowly, with that internal resistance, keep rotating all the way and keep adding against the resistance. So if you feel yourself speed up, go back and go slow through that position, okay? From here, we're gonna reverse it. Thumb back. So now I'm going into extension here. Hit your roadblock. Now you're gonna start to rotate. So you're gonna go the opposite way, trying to keep your chest facing forward. Add against the resistance and all the way back down. So as you're coming down, slow it down. Pretend like somebody's resisting you on your way down, okay? Let's do that one more time on the right side. Slowly forward as far as you can go. Nice and slow. Add in that internal resistance, 30%, okay? Whatever that means to you. Once you get to the end range, again, do not compensate. Keep your ribs down, head facing forward. Keep that elbow locked. Now you're gonna pronate. So you're gonna turn your hand out, come back, pause for a second. I want everybody to pause. Make sure their chest is facing forward. I don't want you to rotate and deviate away from that posture with your trunk. Now start coming down, keep rotating. Keep rotating, slow it down, add in a resistance. Resist. Good. Now we're gonna reverse it. Pinky should be facing forward. Your palm should be facing outwards. And now we're gonna reverse. Thumb backwards as far as it can go. Rotate against the resistance once you hit that barrier, and slowly start to come back up and all the way down. Okay? The reason this is a good drill is because we're trying to expose our shoulder to the same types of positions you're going to be placed in when you're playing tennis. You want the body to be ready for that. Okay? Let's try this on the left side. So, thumb facing forward, keep your ribs down. You're going to raise all the way back up. 30%. As far back as you can. You're going to be back here reaching back for an overhead or a cracky toss or something when the wind blows. So you better be prepared. Now you're going to pronate. Do not rotate your body. Come all the way down, going against that resistance, and then back. Yes, this is good for golf too. And coming back. All the way back. Thumb points facing backwards now. As far back as you can go. When you hit that barrier, try to get even further without moving the trunk. Then you're going to rotate, add in the resistance. When you get to about a letter Y, pause. Pause, make sure the trunk is staying in its position. Make sure the head and neck aren't moving and deviating. And then you're going to slowly come all the way back down. We're going to do one more. That way nobody feels uneven here. Same thing. All the way up. Go against that resistance. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. The idea is here is we want to become in touch with our body and know where it is in space. We want to know where our limb is, and we want our limb, which is our arm in this situation. Now we're going to reverse. Thumb back as far as you can go. Rotate, add in that resistance, and come all the way back down. So again, just take a mental note of how your shoulders feel now, okay? So not only are we warming up the tissue, but we're warming up the connection between the mind and the body, which is extremely important. So that's a good little drill, like I said, to add in. So you could still do, you know, the wild windmill if you want, but this just adds a little bit, a different element to it as well, okay? So that's the first little exercise. Everybody okay with that? Can everybody see decently? Just give me a thumbs up if everybody's hearing me and seeing me okay. Good? Okay.
Bryon, we had a couple of questions. Is it good for golf? Is it good for basketball? This good for any kind of dynamic sports? Yeah,
so I would say this is good for any single sport. This is good for anybody that has a shoulder. I don't care if you're grandma or Mima or whoever you are. This is a great way in order to get the blood flowing, get the nutrients to the actual joint itself, because the only way we can do that is through movement. And if we can go through that full range of motion, theoretically, we might be able to slow down some of that natural decay that our body has anyway. So I would say on a daily basis, whether you're playing tennis or not, it's a great little thing that you can actually be doing. So hockey, tennis, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, if you're moving your arm, I give this to patients like grandma has to reach into the cupboard to get a, you know, coffee or something like that. Or she's carrying an umbrella and the wind blows and her arm goes back this way. It's preparing the body for things that you might be exposed to in real life.
Couple of other questions. Somebody asked, would you move both arms together or always independently?
You can do both. Kind of like I said at the beginning, there's no right and wrong way. The big thing that I like to harp on is the intent. There should be intention and a specific intent with any part of your warm-up or your off-court training. I don't care what it is. There needs to be a specific intent. So in tennis, when I go back and I toss the ball up, both arms sometimes have to move a little bit more simultaneously. So, okay, let's do it both arms as well. And I'm just giving you a little piece of what you can do. So if you want to modify it to make it better for you, feel free to do that.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to move on. We're going to go through one more just so I make sure that we have time to go through this.
Yeah.
Again, for everybody kind of just coming in right now, we're just giving a little bit of a snapshot. If there is, everybody does like this, we can kind of add on to it. You know, we can make this a weekly thing if people do like this. So the other thing that we're going to go through this for the shoulder for the tennis player, and again, I think this is extremely important. We see a lot of tennis players, and again, it's not wrong or right to do this, where their warm-up consists of, okay, they grab a rubber band and they're doing internal, external rotation and stuff like that. Great, I'm all for that if that's what you want. But what I want to do is I want to be able to prepare the shoulder to be able to serve and hit overhead. The shoulder goes into external rotation, so this way, and internal rotation through the various phases of the tennis serve. So I want the athlete to be prepared to get into that position, and especially when we start adding some speed to it. So again, a nice little warm up for this is you can do this in the standing position, or you can do it on your knees if you'd like. But what you're going to do is you're going to have your arm to your side, so as if you were going to hit a tennis serve, or as you're about to go into that external rotation and we start to go up for the ball. Once you're to the side, what we have to understand from a mechanical standpoint in tennis, when you go through external rotations, when you see players toss the ball up and go through that external rotation, the arm is not actually beside their body. Their arm is slightly forward, okay? We see this with our baseball pitchers, tennis players, any overhead athlete that's going into this position in order to strike an object. So what we're going to do together, and again, intent is key, and understanding the details is extremely important. So the people that you work with, they should have a bit of an understanding of tennis, because that will help you with some of the nuances with certain warm-ups and drills as well. So what we're going to do together is we're going to bring one arm up. So 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. Now what we're going to do is, if you could see me in my side view, you're going to bring your arm just about 10 to 15 degrees forward. So it's not directly beside me, it's slightly beside me. From here, just like we did with the other exercise, we're going to go through an active internal and external rotation with 30% resistance. So from here, you're going to slowly, without compensating, so without moving the trunk or the head and neck, from here, we're going to go into full external rotation as far back as you can go against resistance. And then you're slowly going to come back into internal rotation. So it's as if somebody's resisting my hand at 30% and all the way down as far as you can go. Now, the tendency people have with this is when they start going into internal rotation, I'm sure everybody feels that the shoulder wants to come up. We're not allowing for that here. We're trying to isolate as best we can in order to try to get that ball and socket joint to create that rotation, okay? So we're gonna do 2 reps on each side together. So arm out to the side, slightly forward in order to mimic the tennis serve and the overhead. And now we're gonna go into external rotation, making sure we're keeping the elbow up against 30% resistance as far back as you can. Pause when you get to the end and then try to get a little further. Now we're going to go into internal rotation against resistance. So add in a contraction, contract your forearm, contract your bicep, contract your chest, and slowly come into internal rotation as far as you can go without compensating and moving through the chest and the upper back, okay? Now, if you want to make it more specific for tennis, you can move your forearm. You can actually, so this is supination, this motion, you can supinate so that way your thumb's pointing backwards as you come back. And as you're coming into internal rotation, you can start to pronate. okay? So again, it's the little nuances that I feel make a big difference with athletes from an injury standpoint, but also a performance standpoint, okay? Let's try that on the other side as well. So same thing, to the side of the body, slightly forward. We're gonna externally rotate back as far as we can without compensating, keeping the ribs down, so I don't want the stomach coming out, as far back, and now into internal rotation. You can pronate as well. And again, do not compensate through the shoulder or through the upper shoulder, so you're not hiking up, whatever an upper shoulder is. And we're gonna do it again, one more time. All the way back, as far as you go. Keep going, keep that angle there. So I want that 90-degree angle there. I'm watching some of you guys do it and you're collapsing. Keep that up. And now you're coming back all the way forward. Add in that resistance as if somebody's resisting your arm, or you're moving through, like I said, thick mud or syrup or, you know, honey or whatever, however you want to. Perfect. All right, shake it out for a second. So you can see we did 2 reps for both exercises. Maybe it's because I'm talking, but my shoulders are feeling, you know, they feel ready. Like they feel like I can go and actually hit a serve, probably about 50 to 75%. So we're trying to prepare, you know, the whole body for this. Okay, so we're gonna move down the body. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so 2 reps you'd recommend for each exercise?
So it depends.
Okay.
So that's going to be my answer. So I don't want to sound like a jerk. The answer I typically give, and myself and my my other athletic movements assessment partner, is that, you know, it's, you know, to whom and under what condition. Like it really depends who we're dealing with. If we're dealing with younger athletes, you know, maybe we do a little bit less reps. Maybe as we start to become a little bit more in tune with our body, we might be able to do more reps. But at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not that athlete actually feels ready, feels prepared. Because like I said earlier on, we want that minimum effective dose. So as few repetitions as you can, but as many as you must. Because the whole point is we don't want to fatigue them out before they even step on the court. Now, with those 2 exercises, you can make it part of your actual routine, your workout routine. So we're all stuck inside in self-isolation right now. You want to work your shoulder, especially through that axial rotation, that ball and socket joint. Add in 80% of your maximum voluntary contraction as you're going through it. You're going to get a heck of a shoulder workout just by doing that. So the real answer is it depends. You know, you can kind of play around with it. Every athlete's going to be different. Did they just have, you know, a tough match, you know, 2 hours before? Did they have a tough match the day before? Are they completely fresh? We got to figure out where they are. So it's more, you got to use your intuition and the communication with the athletes. Cool. Okay. So we're going to move on. We're going to move down the body now. Now we're going to get into the spine. So with regards to the spine, the intent for this one is more the low back, so the lumbar spine, but as well as we can get the full spine moving through flexion and extension. So everybody's hopefully heard of the exercise cat-camel or cat-cow. So it's when you go on your hands and knees. Sorry, I'm going to keep playing with this camera here, everybody. So cat-camel, cat-cow is when you go on your hands and knees and you're doing this type of motion. Again, we want to create some control, the ability to control and coordinate certain segments and regions of their body. So we're not just mindlessly taking your spine and dumping it into extension and flexion. I'm not just doing this. What we're going to do, and again, a great way to do this from a warm-up standpoint for somebody who might even have a little bit of pain, again, consult your physician or your healthcare provider if you're able to do this, is what we're going to do is we're going to try to move one spine, one vertebrae at a single time. Now, this is not possible because of what they call joint coupling, which is a whole other topic. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to, as best we can, start at the low back and move up the spine through flexion and extension. So it should take you about 20 seconds to go into full flexion. Flexion is this, that angry cat, and about 20 seconds to go into full extension. So with this, I'm going to speed it up for demo's sake, and then we're all going to do about 2 to 3 repetitions together. But this is what it should look like in a sped up way. So I'm going to start with my full, almost like a letter U. And what I'm going to do is, if you watch my low back, it's going to start to move, and I'm going to work my way almost like a wave up my spine and even into the neck. And then I'm going to reverse it. So watch my low back again. I start here, and I'm working my way all the way down and all the way up. You know, if there are any professional tennis players or any kids here or any coaches that either want to be professional tennis players, again, it comes down to focus. If you're mindlessly doing this, you're not going to get much out of the exercise and all the exercises that I'm doing. So you're not watching TV when you're doing this. You're not listening to music when you're doing this. You're focusing on creating that connection between the mind and the body. That way you actually have some control when you get onto the tennis court or when you're doing your off-court training, okay? So what you're gonna do is wrists underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. So you're there and you're here. If it hurts your wrists, go up on your knuckles, okay? A lot of tennis players, for whatever reason, don't like getting into that extended wrist position. So go on your knuckles. I'm one of those people. And we're gonna do 2 reps together, okay? So we're gonna start in full extension, meaning stick your butt out. So butt towards the ceiling, looking up at the sky. Again, if there is any pain during this, please stop or back off the position that it's hurting. So shoulders over the wrists, knees over the hips, or hips over the knees. You're gonna keep the elbows locked out. You're gonna look up. We're gonna start with the low back. So we're gonna start coming up through this low part of the back here. Start tilting, almost like you're trying to tuck your bum underneath you. And you're gonna work your way up. What you're gonna notice with a lot of you guys doing this is when you start moving the low back, you're gonna start to wanna move the upper back at the same time. We're trying to create that independence. You're gonna work your way up. Now we're gonna start in the low back. So you're gonna start to stick your butt out. So drop through the low back. Do not move your neck or your head yet. Just keep dropping through, almost as if I was walking my fingers up your spine. So you're gonna move through one spine, then the next spine, then the next spine, and work your way up. So we're gonna do that one more time. Start in extension, start to tilt, work your way up. Keep looking up at the ceiling, keep looking up at the ceiling as long as you can before you have to start to move the neck. And now we're gonna start at that low back again. Keep the head looking down, start to stick your butt out. So slowly, slowly. Moving, try to picture what a spine looks like. You can pull it up on Google after. And all the way back up. So again, that's a great way just to start to prepare that pelvis and have the control, because guys, I don't want to break my computer. When you're going up for a serve, or you're going back for an overhead, or if you're in the gym and you have to squat, you have to have the ability to control what's going on in the pelvis, okay? What I see with a lot of players, and a lot of players that have repetitive abdominal strains, they have difficulty controlling it. So when they go up for a serve, they hinge, they hyperextend, and they're putting a lot of unnecessary stress on the abdomen as they go through it. This little drill here teaches you how to control it, to control that pelvis and that spine, have some awareness of what's going on. Because a lot of times people get into positions and they don't even realize they're in the positions to begin with. And I'm sure as coaches, you see that with your players. You're like, you keep telling them something, they don't even realize that they're doing it. What we're trying to do here is create that connection, that mind-body connection. Okay, is everybody good with that exercise? Want to make sure I have enough time here. Good. You all good with that? How much time do we have?
As much as you need. What I've done is I'm trying to write down any questions, and then maybe we can address them at the end if we have time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's segmental-ish kind of cat-cow, cat-camel exercise. Again, great little exercise as part of somebody's warm-up. Personally, I do that every single day, whether I'm working out or not. Like, I like to start to get my spine to move a little bit, because we see, especially as we start to get older, you start to see some more elderly people, when they're walking around, they're staring at their shoes all the time. If we are able to do this every single day, you know, if you do this every single day when you're 10 years old until you're 90 years old, guess what you're going to be able to do when you're 90 years old? This exercise, right? So it's a great little drill to do. All right. So the next thing that I want to do is, again, we're going to get back to the spine and the pelvis. So again, I like this as a warm-up. With tennis, especially the serve, it's a sequential motion. It starts from the ground, the leg goes into the hip, goes into the trunk, into the shoulder, into the arm, and into the wrist. So this exercise starts to get the coordination down and also warms up the spine in that rotational element. Tennis is a very rotational based sport. We're not just running forwards and backwards, we're rotating a lot. So I like this next little exercise in order to, again, warm you up, because when you hit a serve, I hit a serve and I'm going up, it's the hips move before my trunk moves. There's a separation. It's almost like golf. When I take my golf swing back, the hips go and then the trunk. If I hit my forehand, some people like, you know, to move as one unit, but essentially the hips move a little bit first and then the rest of the body will move after. So depending on your intent, again, if you want to move this as one unit, feel free to do that. If you're looking at having the ability to separate that pelvis, so the hips from that upper back, this is a great little drill and a great little drill to warm up. Because again, when people are warming up, and I'm not saying this is a bad stretch, we'll just get into this position here and hold it. This drill that we're going to go through makes it more dynamic and makes it more specific for the tennis players here, okay? So what everybody is gonna do is they're gonna lay on their back in a starfish position. So arms up overhead, they're gonna keep their ribs down, legs are gonna be open, past shoulder width apart, okay? And then I'm gonna go on the ground and try to show it that way. So we're all gonna visualize it as if I'm laying on my back right now. So the first motion here that you guys are going to do, and I'm going to show it first twice, and then we'll do it together. The first motion is you're going to turn your hips to the left. So I'm going to try to lift my right hip off the ground. This. From there, once it's up as far as it can go, so I'm creating that dissociation between the pelvis and the upper back. I'm going to reach up for the ceiling. I'm going to try to keep my head looking forward, okay? Looking straight up at the ceiling. And then I'm going to rotate as far as I can over to the other side. So you're going to do a half a roll. So you're going to pivot on your legs. So I'm going to try to show you as best I can. So I am in this position here, hands up overhead. I'm going to turn my pelvis, rotate the pelvis, reach up for the ceiling. And then I'm going to reach across, trying to keep my head facing towards the ceiling. And then I'm going to touch down. So if you can see my heels, they're still on the ground. I'm just pivoting on them. And then from there, I'm going to take a deep breath in through my stomach, deep breath out. And then I'm going to bring the hip back and then the arm back to the starting position. So again, I'm going to show you a different view if you guys can't see it. Arms up overhead, hips, hands up to the ceiling, so reach, rotate, take a deep breath in, deep breath out, and then hips come down, and then the arms follow. Can everybody see that? Mike, how's that look to you? Does that make sense? So it's a half a roll. I'm rolling halfway and coming back. The reason I'm keeping my head facing the ceiling is because with tennis, you rotate about the head. When I hit my forehand and my backhand, my head doesn't move, my trunk rotates. Now, if you're hitting a serve and you want to actually move with it a little bit, feel free to move the neck, the head as well. So again, it comes down to your intent of what you actually want to do with this drill. Good?
Can you give one more demonstration, but maybe with your feet facing the other way?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
they will be a different.
Head facing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so hands up overhead. I'm going to move my hips first. So this right hip is going to come up. My hands overhead. I'm going to reach for the ceiling. I'm going to try to keep my head there. I'm going to reach over. Take a deep breath in through my stomach. Deep breath out. Then I'm going to reverse it. Hips down. Then come back all the way. How's that?
Good.
Good? Okay, so we're all going to try this together. I'm going to do it standing. How did a bit of a visual? Maybe. So start this position. We're laying on our backs. Hands, palms flat against the ground, heels on the ground. What we're going to do is we're going to turn your right hip towards the ceiling. So you're going to turn. We're going to pivot. Once it's up, then we're going to reach the right hand towards the ceiling. Your fingertips should reach up, 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 as high as you can towards the ceiling. Keep your head looking up. Then we're going to reach over as far as we can to the left. Your hand should be able to hit the ground. Once you're in that position, and again, you can pivot on your heels to allow the body to move. Take a deep breath in through your lower abdomen and deep breath out. And return to the start position. Now we're going to go the other way. Take your left hip, turn it towards the ceiling. Reach for the ceiling with your left hand. Keep your head facing towards the ceiling. Reach as far over to the right side as you can with your left arm. Take a deep breath in through your stomach and all the way out. Hips down, arms back to the starting position. We're going to do it one more time each way. Hips first, right hip towards the ceiling. Reach your right hand towards the ceiling. Reach as far as you can to the left with that right arm. Take a deep breath in through your stomach and all the way out. Now hips first, hips down, and then the upper body follows. Same thing on the left. Left hip towards the ceiling, so rotate through the hips. Follow that by the left hand reaching towards the ceiling. Rotate as far as you can to the right side. Breath in through your stomach. Let it all the way out. And return to the start position. Good. Okay. So, like I said, I like this exercise. Really prepares the body for what's intended to do and what's intended to occur on the tennis court. And we're adding movement to it. We're not just statically holding a stretch. We're making it specific based off of the mechanics of a tennis stroke. And again, you can sequence it however you like. If you want to add resistance, you can add that internal resistance. If you want to add in a rubber band, feel free to do that. That's all okay. Again, I like to be able to see my athletes and my patients do it with zero resistance first. They should be able to master this before you start adding in resistance. I don't care if it's Roger Federer or Djokovic. It doesn't matter who it is. They need to prove to me first that they own this movement. They need to own it. And that's the big thing with this. So you don't want to progress too quickly. And on a completely side note, it takes about 3 weeks before your brain actually starts to create some changes, before you start to actually learn it, to really learn something, doing it on a daily basis. So if you're going to start to add in resistance or progress this stuff, do this for a minimum of 3 weeks first. Once they get good at it, then you can start adding it in. And on a different note, Mike, you asked the question of how many repetitions. If you're doing this and the athlete is working really hard for this, and some of you are doing this and you're like, this is a piece of cake. For others, this is very difficult. If it's really difficult, you're doing low amounts of repetition, okay? 2 to 3, 3 to 5 type of deal. If this is easy peasy and it's feeling really easy for them, you can up it. You can do 10 to 20 repetitions. Again, it depends on your intent, but don't tax the player's nervous system, especially before they step out on the court. Do not do that, because it's just going to be a hindrance. And if they're fatigued early on, the research has shown that, you know, it puts them a little bit more at risk for injury. So we don't want to be doing that. Okay.
Perfect. That addressed a couple of questions people had about resistance balls and bands and repetition.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. There's so many different ways that you can modify this stuff. And like I said, if we make this kind of a weekly thing or whatever everybody wants here, we can show different ways that we can progress this stuff. Okay. Just looking at the time here. Okay. I'm going to try to get through a couple more. There's a couple really good ones that I think will be good for everybody. So this next drill, like I said before, with regards to tennis, especially with the ground strokes, you're rotating the body about the head, meaning when I hit my backhand, the head should not be going with the body, right? The head stays still. You watch Agassi, you know, back in the day, hit his head, it's like it just does not move. He's rotating perfectly about that head. And I find with a lot of programs, and again, not you guys, maybe some other people that I've seen, people neglect the head and neck from their training, okay? They neglect it from a movement standpoint, but also a dissociation standpoint, like being able to actually dissociate from what's going on. So we're gonna do a drill. This is a little bit more challenging, if you will. So if you can't do this, you know, just take a look, and maybe this is something that you guys work out for. But again, the ability to move the lower body and the trunk as a unit while keeping the head still, this is a great little, again, as a warm-up or as part of your core training. So instead of just doing sit-ups and planks and whatever else that you're doing, you can start to add in that head and neck component, which again, I find is missed a lot of the times in people's training programs. So if you have a stability ball, one of those big balls, it's great. If you don't have that, I'm going to show you what to do. So you're going to lay on your back in a 90, so it's like a dead bug position. So legs up 90 degrees, hips 90 degrees, arms up. If you had a ball, I would put it in between and I would hold that ball. I don't have actually, I think I do have a ball, but I'm not bringing it out. So we're going to pretend we don't have a ball. You're going to put your hands on your thighs, okay? From here, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the head looking straight up. So again, we're going to move the trunk about the head. So from here, what we're going to do is, as one unit, we're going to rotate the body as far as it can to the left, right about until you feel like you're going to fall over to the side. When you get to that position, you're going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. The reason for this breathing is a lot of people hold their breath, and with tennis, you should have the ability to breathe and brace, contract the core at the same time. If you don't have that ability, so you listen to somebody grunt when they hit a tennis ball, if their core goes limp, they lose that contraction. All that force and energy that you created in order to contact that ball is created again. So you should have the ability to brace and breathe at the same time. This is extremely important for any athlete. So 90-degree position, we're going to do this all together. There's one. Mike, how's that camera angle, okay? Hands on their thighs, head facing towards the ceiling, and we're going to rotate to the right first. So the whole body rotates to the right, head's facing the ceiling still. Once you feel like you're going to fall over, you're going to hold. Keep the core tight, deep breath in, deep breath out, and bring the body back to the starting position. We're going to go to the left. Rotate your whole body and trunk is 1 unit to the left, keeping the head facing towards the ceiling. Hold the position, take a deep breath in, deep breath out, and come back. We're gonna do that one more time. Rotate the full body as far as you can to the right side. If you fall over, good. We want you to push those boundaries a little bit. Get back to the position, deep breath in, and out, and back. And to the left, one more time on the left. Rotate. Hold the position, fight for it. Deep breath in, deep breath out, and back to the starting position. So Brent, a great little drill to mimic some of the movements that happen on the tennis court. And again, it's a very difficult drill. So when we're done here today, for the juniors that are watching this, try doing like 3 sets of 5 each way. Add in that breath. The big thing is, and the big thing, like I said, that gets left out is the breath. But now we're starting to incorporate the head and the neck, which again, I find, and I've watched a lot of top players train, it's neglected from the junior level to the professional level. But you know, hopefully with that drill, it gives you a little bit of an idea. And there's ways to modify that based off of your intent of the actual drill. Okay? All right. So we're gonna move on now. We looked at the ability, so for tennis players, they need tissue compliance. They need the ability for their body and their tissue to deform, to have that extensibility, so that range of motion, if you will. Tennis is very rotational, as we said. The shoulder needs to be able to rotate. The hips are another one that have to have the mobility, the range of motion to rotate, and as well as the thoracic spine. So from here to here, this part of the spine does a lot of rotation, okay? If you don't have adequate rotation through the thoracic spine, so through this part of their body, then you're gonna try to, your body is smart enough and it's gonna try to get it somewhere else. So it has the possibility of overloading other parts of the body. So if I don't rotate well through here, I might do a lot more through my shoulder, or I might do a lot more rotation through my low back. That could potentially unnecessarily overload some of the tissue if it's not prepared properly, okay? So this next drill is gonna work on getting that thoracic spine to rotate through various planes of motion. So I really like this drill as part of a warm-up in order to prepare the body. So for this exercise, if you want, you can go on your knees, you can sit on your knees, you can go into what we call a tall kneeling position, whatever feels comfortable. If you're just sitting down and you have trouble getting on your knees, then do it in a sitting position. There's different ways to modify it. I'm gonna demonstrate it in this kneeling position, so you can kind of see me like this. I find by doing that, it kind of locks out the lower body a little bit, because again, I'm trying to really focus on rotating through that thoracic spine, okay? So I'm gonna demonstrate it. You know what, we're gonna do it together. Screw it, because we got only a certain amount of time here. And that way you guys can get back to whatever it is that you're doing. So everybody nice and tall, keep your ribs down, almost like somebody's got a string to the, nice and tall up. You're gonna put your hands behind your head, okay? And we're gonna all do this together so we can see. So we're going to bend as far as you can to the right. So I'm not shifting my hips to the side. I'm trying to bend from here to here. So bend as far as we can to the right. Everybody do it. Then from here, we're gonna stay in this position and we're gonna rotate to the right-hand side. So you're gonna rotate as far as you can to the right. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Now you're gonna try to flex your spine. So you're gonna try to curl your upper back. Try to curve your upper back. Your low back doesn't curl, your upper back does. Now we're gonna try to point your right elbow to the ceiling. So you're gonna rotate to the left. sorry, to the right. So you're gonna rotate, 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 so the right elbow is facing the ceiling, and then we're gonna come out of that position. So again, we're gonna go to the left. Bend to the left, rotate on that axis, flex your spine, rotate so your right elbow's towards the ceiling, and then back out. We're gonna go to the right again, everybody. Bend to the right, rotate to that right hip, flex your upper back, so try to curl your upper back, and now you're gonna rotate away from it. So I'm gonna rotate so my left elbow is pointing to the ceiling. I might have explained the first one incorrectly, I apologize. And then we're gonna get out of that position. Now to the left, bend to the left, rotate to the left. So your right elbow is trying to get towards the ground. Flex your upper back, so try to curl your upper back. Now you're gonna rotate, so that way your right elbow should be towards the ceiling, stay on that axis, and then come back up to that starting position. How does that feel? Hopefully you guys are feeling it. So if you want to add in that internal resistance to that movement, feel free to do it. You can kind of modify it however you want. Okay, so we did the shoulder, you got the shoulder moving. It needs a lot of range of motion. The thoracic spine, it needs to move a lot in tennis. We did that half roll to try to create some dissociation. Now we're gonna get into the hips a little bit here. So with regards to the hips, again, if you don't have adequate amounts of rotation of the hips, so meaning internal and external rotation, so meaning if you guys watch my hip here, this is my hip going in internal rotation, external rotation, you're gonna find the compensation and potential increase of risk of injury potentially somewhere else, either in the low back or knees. So if you're having knee pain, you're having low back pain, upper back pain, the hips are a huge segue that is needed to be addressed when you're having any of these issues. From a performance standpoint, if you can pivot on your hips, you can create a lot more torque and potentially increase that ball velocity than somebody who doesn't. So when I get into my forehand position, when I hit a forehand and I set up, say, open stance and I step out, one hip is going into internal rotation and one hip's going into a little bit more external rotation. And then you pivot. So if I step out for a backhand, it's here. So the hips have to have that ability to rotate internally and externally. So I really love this drill, again, as a warm-up or as part of your workout routine. So I'm going to demonstrate it, and I'll give you guys some modifications as well as we go through it. But what you're going to do to start off, and we'll try to make it easier on you guys, is you're going to get to what they call a bear sit position. So you're going to sit on your bum, heels on the floor, and if you have a lot of control and range, keep your hands off the ground. If you need a little bit of that support, you'll put your hands on the ground in order to prop you up a little bit. Once you're in that position here, and I'm going to demonstrate it so everybody can follow along after, I'm going to take my knees, or essentially my hips, and one hip's going to go into internal rotation, and one hip's going to go into external rotation. So it puts me in what they call a 90. If you look from here, I got a 90-degree angle here, I got a 90-degree angle here, and I got a 90-degree angle here. Okay, can everybody see that, Mike? How does that look to you? Can you see that 90-degree?
Yes, this is clear. Yeah.
Clear? There we go. So 90, 90.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is the starting position. Now, it should be felt in the hips. If you're feeling it in your knees, it tells us something's going on, so we can modify it, and in addition, maybe get your hips assessed a little bit. So for, more of the older tennis players out there, they might have some difficulty with the knees or getting in this position. If you do, you can take a shoe, you can take a yoga block, you can take towels, and you can prop it up. So if I get into that 90-degree, if I'm having trouble getting into, say, this position here, I could take something and I could put it underneath. So I can build it up, because I might not be able to get into that position. The same thing with this down leg here. If I can't get there and I'm compensating, then, you know, you can put something there to build it up. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody there. Because some people are going to really struggle getting into this position. But again, I feel this is a great little drill and you can modify it as best you can. That 90-degree position. So again, I start bear sit. Chest is going to stay facing forwards, okay? I'm creating that dissociation, which is what's needed for tennis players when you're on the court. You should be able to separate that upper and lower body. If you're a golfer, a hockey player, it's the same darn thing. If you're a martial artist, you got to have that you know, interdependence between the joints and the regions in order to create that torque. So from here, I go into my 90-90 position. I'm trying as best I can to keep my chest facing forward. From here, my leg that's down, so the outside of my leg that's touching the ground, I am going to actively, without shifting my body, I'm going to try to push my knee and my whole leg into the ground. So I'm going to drive it into the ground. So probably at about 60 to 70%. Okay, I'm going to give everybody a second to get into that position just so they can feel it. So from bear sit, if you want to just start in 90-90, start in 90-90. The chest should be overlooking that trail leg, the leg in the back. Okay, from here, drive knee into the ground. And what we're going to do is, with 30% internal resistance, I'm going to rock this leg through external rotation and internal rotation. So like a windshield wiper. So I'm going to bring this leg all the way up and all the way back down. Now, guys, this is very, very important. When I am doing this motion, this knee does not come off the ground. I'm driving it into the ground the whole time. So I'm having a lot of moving parts here, which is what tennis is. You have to be able to control for a lot of moving parts. So drive the knee into the ground and add in the resistance. So when I come up, it's almost as if somebody's resisting against me as far as I can here and as far as you can here. So all the way up, all the way down. We're going to do 2 repetitions side to side. Take a mental note and tell me how warm your hips feel after this. Tell me what warms up the hips more, this or just doing, you know, high knees around the tennis court. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just like you to start to have the ability to be like, okay, maybe I need more of this and a little bit of less of this, or vice versa. Like you might be like, holy crap, this stuff horrible. I'm never doing it again. Fair enough. Okay. So make it important, make it, you know, relevant to you. So we're going to start going to the right first. So everybody, bear sit position. You don't have to see my face, I guess. Bear sit position, hands back. Check. I want you nice and sitting upright. So I don't want you guys, I don't want this. I want this, okay? We did those cat camel. That cat camel translates into this exercise here, having the ability to keep yourself in that proper position. So everybody's nice and upright. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate to the right, okay? I don't know what it looks like on the camera, but we're going to rotate to the right. So right leg outside of the knees on the ground, the left inside of the leg is on the ground and the chest is facing forward. You're going to look down at your legs, make sure there's a 90-degree angle and a 90-degree angle. If you can't get there, either A, prop the knee up, or B, bend the knee a little bit, okay? You can bend that back leg. That might take some pressure off as well. So again, there's different ways to modify this depending on how you're feeling. But for all you young tennis players that are watching, hopefully you guys can get into this position here. So drive your right knee into the ground at about 70 to 80% of your maximum contraction. So really try to push without shifting your weight. Now what we're going to do is, as if there's about 30 to 40% resistance, we're going to pretend and we're going to pivot off your foot like a windshield wiper. So we're going to raise that left knee up as high as it can go. Who's in that red shirt? Do it, buddy. Nike hat. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Here we go, buddy. All the way up. And then add that resistance all the way back down. Okay? So let's do it again. Push the right knee into the ground. Keep breathing. Pivot on your foot. all the way up. When you get to that end position, I want you to fight for a couple more degrees. You need to expose yourself to the positions you might hit on the tennis court. So be prepared for it. From there, slowly on the way down, as if you're resisting. You're only going to get what you put into this drill. If you just flimsily move your knee, you're not going to get much. Okay? Now we're going to go the other way. So pivot, keep the chest facing forward, and we're going to go the other way. I'm going to give you guys a second to get into position. Drive your left outside of your knee and your left outside of your ankle into the ground. Now, once it's driven in, you're going to pivot on your right foot and you're going to raise that right knee up as high as it can go. Once you get to the end, pause and try to get further. Keep driving that left leg down. Drive that left leg down. Create that separation and slowly bring that right knee all the way back down against that internal resistance. So you're contracting your hamstrings, your groins, your quads, your calves. And we're going to go again, all the way up and all the way back down. Okay? So we did 2 repetitions per side. Everybody's kind of feeling, that movement. We're going through full range of motion, and that way the body's prepared, because if you don't do it during the warm-up or during your training, you're going to get exposed to that at some point, during a tennis match or your off-court training. And this is where we see, some injuries occur. We're trying to prepare the body, okay? If it is, I don't want pain as in, I always say with some level of discomfort's okay, like 3 out of 10. But if you're feeling pain for this purpose here, I want you to stop doing it. You're not doing it. You probably should get a healthcare professional, somebody to check it out. There should be no pain with it. But in the meantime, like I said before, you can modify these exercises. You can put something underneath so you don't go down as far. You can bend that trail leg a little bit. You can bend that other leg, and you can hopefully take some stress off it. But if you're feeling pain in that hip as you're moving back and forth through that area, that's something that needs to get addressed, I think, not just from a pain standpoint, but the functional standpoint, especially if you are, a high level athlete and you're trying to get to that next level. You need hips. Like, hips are king. If you don't have good rotation and movement through the hip, we're going to see a lot of compensation above and below. And that's where you can start to unnecessarily overload some other tissue from an injury standpoint. And again, you're not going to get the most out of your performance from an injury, from a performance standpoint. Okay, so that's about an hour, Mike. Like,
Perfect.
Hours, but I got a wife and 2 kids.
Of course. No,
I think my wife would kill me
really,
at this point.
That was really great, and we had a very good turnout. I am going to post for anybody that wants to review it. The video will go up at some point this week on oncourt.ca.
So I just want to say one more thing. So before you guys sign out of this page, and you can email me if you've got an email from me, if you got an email from Mike or one of your coaches, and your coaches can email me personally. During this time, this is just a way for me to give back. I'm not charging for the stuff. I know for the tennis players, you guys are all sitting inside. You got nothing to do. Hopefully you can get something out of this, so that way when you do get back on the tennis court, you're a little bit more prepared than everybody else. And, just to do on your own. If this is something that you do want, I'm more than happy to make this a weekly thing for the tennis players. We can kind of build off stuff as we go through it, and I can talk to Mike. Either Mike can host it, or I can, get my own Zoom account and do it, or however we want to do it. As well as I do post, so I post exercises myself. So like I said, I run an educational seminar for trainers, healthcare providers, chiros, physios, ATs, called Athletic Movement Assessment. We try to post a lot of good content on our Instagram account, mostly Instagram and Facebook, which is under Athletic Movement Assessment. If you scroll through our stuff, we post a lot of exercises and a lot of research that relates to, some of it's tennis, some of it's not, but you can use some of that stuff that we post, hopefully, and hopefully apply it either to yourself as a player or as a coach or as a trainer, whoever's watching here, to some of your stuff, and maybe give you guys a little bit more information as well. So again, just a way, and again, I try to post some unique exercises and research and stuff like that, and I try to make it a little humorous as well. So it's athletic movement assessment. So if you want, hopefully it gives you some more, some more tools, some more ideas and stuff like that as well. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time. And Mike, I'll stick around as long as you guys want with regards to questions. And, hopefully you guys got something. It's not the be all and end all of what I'm saying. Take what you like, put it in, make it your own. There's different ways to do it. Nobody's right. Like, there's no really right way. The answer is it depends, and you just got to make it relevant to you, make it relevant to the athletes, to the players. And that's the best that we can do. And again, hopefully we can make our players that much better, because, at that top level, if you're 10 in the world and you want to get to 1 in the world, it's that little percent. And if you're that 10-year-old tennis player out there who's watching, hopefully you're doing, a couple more things that other tennis players aren't. So when you start hitting 16, 17, 18 years old, your body's, you're a step ahead of everybody else. Hopefully some of these exercises, help add to that as well.
Great.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
One of the questions we got, I think we got it twice, was how young would you recommend athletes to do this? So you referenced young athletes, and some people were saying, what's a young athlete? Is it an under 10, an under 9, an under 8?
Yeah. I would. So for a lot of those exercises there, like, there's nothing too strenuous about what we went over. It was all body weight, and it was all controlling and coordinating movement. So I would say start them young, like, get them used to their body, but let them experiment with that movement. Like, there's no right and wrong way. If they're moving a lot, just don't over accuse them, don't over coach them on it. Let them fail. Like, you need that failing, you need to be able to fail in order to learn. So you want them to experiment a little bit, and then certain times you can add the constraint and be a little bit more nitpicky with it. But the whole idea is learning and being more aware of your body, and to translate over to the tennis court. But the other thing too is, and we're going through right now, for players who have had an injury and have to take time off tennis, or like what we're doing here, sitting in our homes and not being able to get on the tennis court, like, if you don't have that awareness and you don't know what your body was doing beforehand, then when you get back to that tennis court 2, 3, 4 weeks later, the COVID that we're going through right now, you're going to have more difficulty getting back to that, to that level of play, because you didn't have that awareness. You didn't have that mind-body connection going into it. So it's very important. I say start them young with this stuff. Like, I have a 4-year-old son, and I just make like a game out of some of the stuff. Like, he'll watch me do some of my warm-up and he'll try to mimic it. And I'm not correcting him or anything. Like, it's movement. Like, I want people to move and experiment with their body and learn, learn the limitations and learn what they have and what they might need. So I think start them young. And, the only thing on the young athletes, and especially the athletes that are, maybe going through a growth spurt as well. This is very important for a coach's standpoint. If you have an athlete who's going through a growth spurt and they're looking a little bit more awkward on the tennis, this is completely sidebar from where we were going. But if they're looking awkward on the court and they're losing velocity in their serve, and if they're, not playing as well, that's a normal thing. Don't get on them too much, and, ease their parents' mind. They might have been beating everybody and they're losing to players that they didn't lose to before. That's okay. Like, it's a learning process, and that's the big thing.
Perfect. Do you have a specific website that people can access for maybe more exercises or more information? You talked about having website and Instagram.
So the big one from a exercise standpoint is our Instagram. From an exercise library for people who take our seminar, and again, this is just more for for healthcare providers and trainers. We have an exercise library. So if that's what they get from taking our seminar and learning what we teach on how to actually assess athletes adequately. So the best thing I can say is it's more the Instagram, and then
what's your Instagram account? How do people add you?
So athletic movement assessment.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I put this up in the shameless plug there for you guys. So it's myself and a sports chiropractor. We've been teaching around the world, other trainers and healthcare professionals, how to assess athletes. Because like I said at the beginning of this, with regards to the warm-up, and again, I work with the Toronto Argonauts. So when they get on in the field, I don't create their warm-up, but everybody's doing the same thing. But in the locker room before the game, if I can do a couple assessments and see what they actually need individually, I can then give them a couple exercises when they go out on the field to give them what they need. Because like I said, everybody's different. An 8-year-old is different than a 14-year-old. A boy at 14 is different than a girl who's 14 years old. So we have to understand everybody's different. And the more we understand that and the complexity of learning and movement and just performance overall, the better we can apply things to our athletes.
Perfect. I'm not sure if somebody was asking for your email. I would assume it's on your website.
Yeah, you can either email athleticmovementassessment@gmail. It's just me and my business partner that get it. Or my personal Gmail, it's bryon@gmail.com. It's Bryon.
Yeah.
Bryon. Or my clinic, I treat out of Mississauga, like close to the airport. So it's like the Etobicoke, Toronto area. And it's High Point Wellness Center. So it's B as in Bryon, Weinberg, WEINBERG at highpointclinic.com. And that's where I'll assess athletes and or treat them for various injuries and stuff like that. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if anybody wants to review the information, like I said, we will be posting it. The link will be up at encore.ca at some point this week. And thank you, Bryon, for taking the time to do this. Hopefully we can arrange to do it again. I got a lot of positive feedback, so.
Yeah, like I said, help everybody out and help the players. I know how it was. I hated taking a day off playing tennis, which is probably a horrible thing because we all need time off. But, any way I can help, the tennis players, the coaches, best I can. Email me, follow me on Athletic Movements Assessment on the Instagram. And if there's enough want for this type of thing, my son goes to bed at 12:30, one of them for a nap. So it gives me the 12:30 to 1:30, depending on how he naps, to get something like this in. And, we can tailor it if there's certain things that that you see with your athletes or yourself, and you're like, can you give me an exercise for this? Maybe we can, tailor it a little bit each session, and until they let us outside.
That's great.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you very much. Appreciate
Yes.
everybody for attending, and Mike and Ace and everybody else for putting this on. And hope to see you guys soon. And Mike will be in touch.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bryon. You take care.
All right, guys, everybody be well, stay safe, keep isolating. Bye.
Bye-bye.